Plenty of heavy hitters in this second heat who have a chance, possibly, Bill, of chasing down Eric Harmony.
And the one you're going to have to look at right away is going to be Chris Spealler. I mean, that's the most famous name out there right away. There he is, coming right in the middle of your screen there. Known for his body weight movements, known for his muscle ups. We know he's hit 30 unbroken in the past before, so it's going to be, if anyone's going to get a good time and really push Cody Anderson, this is going to be the guy who's going to do it.
Athletes taking their position underneath the rings. They will start this event with a 400-meter run. Cody Anderson, in setting the time to beat, pretty much showed everybody what they're going to have to do in order to win this event, and that is to go unbroken on the muscle-ups. Cody Anderson never hopped off the rings once. Every time you do that, it's a 200-meter run, and unless you're sprinting that, you're probably not going to catch him.
I don't think that kind of kicks you in the gut even more if you try to sprint your penalty and to get back on the rings again.
It can sometimes be good to go in one of the later heats, but in this time it might be a little disheartening after seeing what Cody Anderson was able to do. Cole Sager, one of the rookies, tore his hands pretty badly last night in the 21:59 complex. The rookie apparently learning his lesson. He's got some tape and some gloves on those hands,
which is important, but you know what, he comes in with a really strong muscle up background. We've seen him do 20 unbroken with a 20-pound weight vest on, so I'm hoping that those tears on the hands don't hold him up too much.
First 400-meter run underway. Look for Dan Bailey to push the pace here. Bailey, a forward track guy, in the 400-meter run was his event.
He may really start to lead some people out and try to break some people on the run. If these athletes are smart, they're going to really let their own pace set the tempo. They have to really put blinders on this one. It's super important, because if you hit that wall, you're going to be doing penalty laps all day long.
And I've heard you say this a lot. You want to run your race, not someone else's. When you start running someone else's race, you run into problems.
Especially when you have a movement like muscle ups. The thing is, when you hit a gymnastic movement and you hit a wall on the gymnastic movement, you have no choice but to sit there. The problem is that when you sit, you're doing penalty laps, which ruins you all over again.
The men here in this second heat working their way up and over that berm, and just because one athlete is in front of the other does not necessarily mean that athlete is in the lead. They all have the same distance to run. They took off from different points on the field. They will return to that same point and then get to work on that first set of 18 muscle-ups. And once again, it's Cody Anderson with the time to beat, 10 minutes, 43 seconds. Will Moorad in the backwards hat, yellow top on his way down the stairs. Tyson Takasaki, red shorts, no shirt on. And James Hobart, also red shorts, no shirt on, working his way down the stairs. Moorad will make the right turn. And then it's 18 muscle-ups here in the muscle-up biathlon, event number 7 for the men here at the 2014 Reebok CrossFit Games.
Will Moorad has a listed unbroken muscle-up set of 22, so we know he should be able to get that first set. But you know, how much did that 400 meters and that up and over the hill of 5 stories take out of him? That's what's going to be the question.
Moorad back to the rings. Högberg back to the rings. Travis Mayer is back to the rings, and just about every man finishing up his 400-meter run. James Hobart is there, Brandon Swan, and Moorad off to work on that first set of 18 muscle-ups, as is Travis Mayer. James Hobart on the rings as well. Mayer and Moorad both through 5. Moorad now through 6, through 7. The athlete who is in the lead will be highlighted in blue at the top of your screen, and the movement that the leader is on will have a blue box around it, so you can follow this event. It's 18 muscle-ups, a 400-meter run. 15 muscle-ups, a 400-meter run, and then 12 muscle-ups and a 400-meter run remaining. Will Moorad had to break him up, and he's off on a 200-meter penalty lap.
I was not expecting that at all. I thought for sure he would at least do the first set unbroken. We know he has a large ability to get that, but that's what I said. That 400-meter up and over the hill may have done it.
The only chance that people are going to have to catch Cody Anderson is to go unbroken, and it looks like Dan Bailey is trying to do just that. If he drops, he's got to go on a 200-meter run. One more for Bailey, and he gets it. So Dan Bailey on track to beat Cody Anderson, and Ben Smith is there as well. You do not want these two guys chasing you down.
Not at all. All very experienced, and if you look behind them, if we can get a good camera shot right behind them, Chris Spealler's chasing them down. So you saw how much issue that Dan Bailey, how much struggle he had on that last rep. Guarantee you, Chris Spealler does not have that kind of a problem going into this. He knows to be smart, he knows to conserve his energy, and it's not the first round like we said earlier, it's round 2 and that final round 3.
Chris Spealler is one of 3 men to compete in 7 CrossFit Games. After 2012, he said it would be his last. He came back in 2013 and did not qualify. That did not sit well with him. He's back this year, and he has said, yes, this is going to be the last one.
And man, my goodness, I'm glad he's here. It's almost like not right to have a CrossFit
It did not seem right last year to not have Chris Spealler in the field. Spealler working his way up the stairs. Dan Bailey and Ben Smith were the first 2 men to take off on their second 400-meter run. Both of them went unbroken on their muscle-ups.
How crazy is this? Chris Spealler went unbroken. Moorad did not. And look where he is with Chris right now. So he was able to go fast enough on that penalty lap to actually come up right to the guys that went unbroken. Again, that's round 1, so we have to see just how much extra effort that's really putting and taxing his body for the muscle ups coming up.
Dan Bailey in the dark shorts is in front of Ben Smith, who's in the red shorts. And then Moorad in the yellow top, red shorts, and the hat sits in 3rd on this run. Chris Spealler's behind him. 15 muscle-ups are next. Cody Anderson is setting the time to beat at 10 minutes 43 seconds. Went unbroken on every set.
So this next round is where it really becomes critical. How much rest do you take? So you see that Ben and Dan are out in the front. You know that they're going to be pushing each other, obviously. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a little bit of a head jockeying back and forth just to see who's going to hop up on the rings first, who's going to chalk up a little bit longer just to make sure they get a little bit more rest, and then goes into that next set.
Dan Bailey is back to his lane and back underneath his rings. Ben Smith had a little farther to go. He'll make the left turn into his lane, and he will get underneath his rings. 15 muscle-ups left before a final 400-meter run and then a final 12 muscle-ups. Bailey on your left, Ben Smith on the right, the 2 men battling for first place, and it's Bailey on the rings first. Chris Spealler now back on the rings as well. Bailey is through 4, Spealler through 3, Ben Smith through 2, and Moorad is now through 3. Bailey has knocked out 6. Spealler 6 as well. We're approaching the 7-minute mark. The time to beat is 10:43, and none of these athletes has dropped off the rings. Dan Bailey trying to get his kip back. He does so, and Bailey keeps going, as does Ben Smith. Chris Spealler, meanwhile, went unbroken, and he is going to start his second 400-meter run with 1 to go, and Spealler has overtaken the lead. Look out, Cody Anderson. The legend is on your heels. Ben Smith is done as well. And Dan Bailey had to break up his second set. So now the race for first place is between Ben Smith and Chris Spealler. Between the 2 of them, they have 13 appearances at the CrossFit Games. Dan Bailey on the backstretch of his 200-meter penalty lap.
You saw him really struggling on those last couple, so you knew it was going to happen, but he had to go for it. Dan's strong enough to know that if he gets a 200-meter penalty, that'll be enough for rest to go ahead and hit those next set of reps. But I am so impressed with Ben Smith right now. He's not a small athlete. You compare him to Chris Spealler, 2 totally different bodies, 2 totally different body types, but where Ben Smith is strong is he is just good at doing weird, funky things. He used to work out in his house before he opened up CrossFit Krypton, and they would just throw rings up on the tree and start doing muscle-ups out there and throwing the bars around in the neighborhood cul-de-sac.
Will Moorad is now done with his 15 muscle-ups. He's off on his 400-meter run, and Dan Bailey has finished up as well, and Bailey is off on that 400-meter run. But here are your two leaders in this heat. The dark shorts, Chris Spealler, and the red shorts, Ben Smith. The time to beat is 10 minutes 43 seconds. That belongs to Cody Anderson. He went unbroken on everything. So far, these two men have gone unbroken on everything, but they're going to have to hurry if they want to catch Cody Anderson. They're about 20 seconds behind the pace that was set earlier by Cody Anderson.
Really, honestly, would it be expecting to see Chris Spealler push the pace here a little bit more, especially on the downhill? He's done a whole bunch of running. Chris is well known for his running, so he should be able to kind of reel a little bit, let himself come down and get to those rings. I expect him to go quickly, get on the rings. I'm really shocked he's not pushing the pace just a little bit more, though.
The second of three heats here in Event 7 for the men at the 2014 Reebok CrossFit Games. The Muscle Up Biathlon. The name was announced well before the game started, but that was all they had, and a lot of speculation took place after that.
I loved all the stuff that came out on the comment boards about what exactly it's going to be. But this is exactly what it is. It's running, just like you would see in like a skiing biathlon, but it's running and then that other event, and it's, man, muscle ups? Wow, what a way to get you.
Unless Ben Smith and Chris Spealler all of a sudden find another gear, it looks like Cody Anderson is going to be safe. Smith and Spealler putting the finishing touches on their final 400-meter run and making their ways back to the ring. Spealler's going to get there first. He has 40 seconds to do 12 muscle-ups and get himself across the finish line, but Cody Anderson is going to be safe with one heat to go. Spealler shaking out his arms, getting back on the rings. 12 muscle-ups to go for Chris Spealler.
So smooth on these rings. He makes it look so effortless.
Ben Smith is on your left. Chris Spealler is on your right. Spealler is through 5. Ben Smith just behind him. Cody Anderson's time of 10:43.46 will survive this second of 3 heats. Now 4 to go for Chris Spealler, trying to go unbroken on the Muscle Up Biathlon. 5 to go for Ben Smith, and now Spealler slowing a bit, but it's staying on the rings. Ben Smith is catching Chris Spealler and can win this heat if he keeps this pace. 1 to go for Smith.
My gosh.
And Smith is done and sprinting towards the finish line. Spealler's up, but he's not going to catch Smith, so it's Ben Smith getting the win in this heat. Chris Spealler will finish second.
Blown away right now. Ben Smith, are you kidding me? That was, I'm going to tell you right now, that was one of the most impressive workouts I've ever seen Ben Smith ever have. That is not a workout I would think that he would beat Chris Spealler in. And oh my gosh, that was impressive. That was impressive.
Chris Spealler managed to keep himself on the rings, but did not keep the same pace. And now Will Moorad will wrap up a third place finish in this heat. Moorad qualifying out of the Central East region, where this man used to compete. Dan Bailey was there for a couple of years and then moved to Southern California. He qualified there as well. And Dan Bailey through 6 muscle-ups. He's halfway home if he drops off. It's that 200-meter penalty run. Now 3 to go. Dan Bailey, no rep, and that's costly. If Bailey drops, it's a 200-meter run.
Couldn't do it, you know, but that's extremely impressive how long he's holding on to the rings like that and actually trying to stop, trying to reset, see what he can pull out of there.
Bailey trying to wrap up a 4th place finish in this heat. The time cap is 18 minutes, and he has plenty of time to get inside of that. Cody Anderson still with the best mark of the day at 10:43. Chris Spealler and Ben Smith did a great job in trying to chase that down, but it did not happen. Ben Smith with the win in this heat at 11:15. He beats Chris Spealler by 2 seconds, and Will Moorad by 30. Those are the only 3 men in this heat to finish the event so far. And it's Dan Bailey who currently sits in 4th place. Cole Sager, the rookie, on the left of your screen in the yellow shorts, battling with Con Porter. And it's a race for 4th between James Hobart and Björgvin Karl Guðmundsson, and it was Guðmundsson by a second, less than a second, about a 1/10 of a second in fact, and now Dan Bailey is across the finish line, and Dan Bailey will lock up a 6th place finish in this heat. That's good for 7th overall in the event with 1 heat to go here in the Muscle Up Biathlon.
You can see just how time-consuming one penalty can do. Now, there's times where you need to do it because you just have no choice, and that's a smart move. But when you're really risking it all, that extra minute allows for a lot of movement on the leaderboard. You can tell Dan's not happy about that at all.
Dan Bailey did his best to try and hang on there on that final set of muscle-ups, but he had to drop off the rings. Ben Smith did not drop off ever, much like Cody Anderson, but Ben Smith was just about 30 seconds slower than Cody Anderson, still locking up a win in this heat. It's good for 2nd overall in the event. Chris Spealler would finish 2nd. He sits 3rd overall in this event. There is 1 heat to go here in event 7, the Muscle Up Biathlon. Lukas Högberg in the yellow shorts is on his penalty lap. Neal Maddox rounding that final turn in the dark shorts. A little more than 3 minutes to go before we hit that 18-minute time cap.
Mr. Cole Porter, I was really hoping to see something more from him, but I think the tears in his hands were just too much.
Con Porter gets himself across the finish line, the rookie out of Australia. Cole Sager, meanwhile, 2 muscle-ups to go. He is done, and the rookie out of the Northwest makes his way across the finish line. A solid finish for Cole Sager. 15:28.30 and a high five from Chris Spealler. And now Lukas Högberg finishing up his event. We approach the 16-minute mark, and 5 men still left on the field. Neal Maddox is done. Maddox making his run to the finish line, and he is in 10th in this heat. 15:55.95 for Neal Maddox, who won back-to-back events yesterday in the soccer stadium in Sprint Sled 1 and Sprint Sled 2. Here's Brandon Swan out of Australia, finishing up his event. Swan well inside that 18-minute time cap. He will finish in 11th place, 16:17.34. Jonne Koski, the 19-year-old rookie out of Pori, Finland, the man who's coached by 2009 CrossFit Games champion Mikko Salo, has finished up. And Tyson Takasaki, meanwhile, another 200-meter penalty lap for him, and now he has to start worrying about getting himself across the finish line underneath the time cap. He's through 9 of his 12 muscle-ups. Travis Mayer still on the rings. More than a minute to go before we hit the time cap, and Mayer, if he can finish up this set, will have no problem getting himself across the finish line inside of that. Mayer is done, and Travis Mayer makes his way towards the finish line. Only 1 man left on the field, and that's Tyson Takasaki. Takasaki with 3 muscle-ups to go, and then a run to the finish line, and he's really going to have to step on the gas here if he's going to make that. The crowd urging Tyson Takasaki on here. 30 seconds to go. Every rep will count. Neal Maddox coming over to cheer on Takasaki. 20 seconds to go. You get a 1-second penalty for every rep you do not complete inside that 18-minute time cap. 1 is down. That's 2. Takasaki has a chance here. Locks out 3, 6 seconds to get himself across the finish line. And Takasaki did not make it. He will hit the time cap, but a valiant effort from Tyson Takasaki, the former wide receiver for the University of Manitoba. Looked like he was running a fly pattern there. Just couldn't quite make it across the finish line. He'll have a 1 second penalty. But a great effort at the end there for Tyson Takasaki. But it's Ben Smith who wins the heat. The man in front of him, Chris Spealler, will finish second. Neither one of them jumping off the rings at any time.